Well, and live now to the Colorado State Capitol, where Governor Polis delivered his 2025 State of the State address today.
It's the governor's second to last address before his term ends in 2 years. Today, Polis reflected on Colorado's successes from the last year, while also setting the stage for what's to come.
In Colorado, good enough is not good enough. We aim to do more, to do better for more people, to climb higher, to improve our standard of living, to keep communities cleaner and safer.
Let's bring in Denver 7's Brandon Richard now live at the Capitol with a breakdown of the governor's address today.
And Brandon, the governor is remaining optimistic despite a $1 billion budget gap looming over lawmakers.
Yeah, that's right. And despite the challenges that the state is facing, he says that he remains optimistic about Colorado's future, believing that the future is bright. But he is urging lawmakers to get to work tackling some of the major issues that the state faces, including finding ways to make things more affordable for Coloradans. During his State of the State speech, which lasted about 50 minutes, the governor called on lawmakers to expand affordable housing options, building on some of the work he says they did last year. He's calling on them to make it easier to build other types of housing, such as modular housing and smart stair apartments, which are really more common in Europe. He wants to allow churches in Colorado to build housing on their land, and he wants to see more condos being built. Another challenge he spoke about, the budget and that nearly $1 billion shortfall. Now, after his speech, I sat down with the governor and asked why the state is facing this shortfall. On the budget, the state faces a massive budget shortfall, and some people might wonder why when they see you out here bragging about the state's economy. Why are we facing this massive shortfall?
Yeah, we have a huge budget surplus. People will get a Tabor refund. The reason for the budget shortfall is because inflation came down. So the state budget only goes up by inflation, and that's what Tabor does by formula. And there's a big surplus, $600–700 million. Everybody will get a check. It's great. But at the same time, they're making cuts because instead of growing by 4%, the state budget will grow by 2.6%.
You can see there the governor trying to find some positivity about the situation by mentioning those Tabor refunds. Lawmakers, on the other hand, see very few positives, describing it as grim and having to cut about $1 billion from a $16 billion budget. Many worried about which programs they'll have to cut. Now, tonight at 6, we'll hear more of my conversation with Governor Polis, including getting his thoughts on the incoming president, Donald Trump, and what he thinks about Trump's mass deportation plan and how the state will respond to that.
Now, Brandon, you're one-on-one with Governor Polis. It's coming ahead of a challenging final 2 years in office, which will be spent under a second Trump administration.
Yeah, Polis has notably shown openness to Trump's decisions, such as Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nomination to lead the country's health agencies. So how is Polis looking to bridge the gap between his priorities and President-elect's?
Yeah, of course, for starters, we know that the governor was not hoping for Donald Trump to return to the White House. That's why he endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. But the governor says that he's willing to work with anyone as long as it is in the best interest of Colorado. And he says he's also willing to stand up to any president, whether it's President Trump or even President Biden, if he feels that they're doing something not in the best interest of Colorado. But he says moving forward, he hopes to have as good a relationship as possible with President Trump.
Have to be tactful in that situation.
Absolutely. Denver 7's Brandon Richard reporting for us tonight. Brandon, thank you.